You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air. It is Thursday, January 23rd. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank everyone for subscribing and supporting what we're doing so far. We're getting close to 600 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're subscribing, thank you. If you haven't, please do so. And also tell like a friend, 2 or 10 friends, if you will, kind of help us build this thing. We are also up on all the podcast platforms as well, and that has helped our distribution a ton. The big one, of course, Apple Podcasts, finally up on them as well. So if you can't join us live, which several people are doing right now, make sure you listen to it later on in the afternoon or evening. Yesterday, great show. My mentor, Dan Burrich, had Wild Man Wednesdays. It's something we're going to continue to do each and every Wednesday. So Dan Burrich was with us yesterday. We talked to Rock Island head coach Mark Polite, and then Tom Kakert was in to talk all about the Hawkeyes as well. If you missed that show, you can check that out on YouTube and, of course, your podcasting platforms as well. Today, a big show, an exciting show. Coming up at 10:30, we'll be joined by the one and only Owen Freeman, reigning Big Ten Freshman of the Year, former Moline State champion. We'll talk Hawkeyes with him. Also with Big Owen, we will talk a lot of professional wrestling. Yes, Owen is a huge professional wrestling fan, and the Royal Rumble is coming up in just a few weeks. So we'll talk Hawkeyes with Owen Freeman. We'll talk about his Moline Maroons and how his brother's still doing. And of course, we'll talk some wrestling as well. So excited to be joined by Owen Freeman. That coming up around 10:30. Also, in the second hour of the show, we'll break down some more high school basketball. A great time of year for high school basketball, and a great rivalry coming up on Friday with Sherrard and Rock Ridge going head to head. We'll be joined now, or I should say in the second hour, by Alex Johnson, the head coach of Sherard. The Tigers 18-2 on the season. They knocked off Rock Ridge in the first game, and game number 2 coming up on Friday night. That'll be a ton of fun. But we start our show off talking a little Cyclones. We haven't talked Cyclones in a while, so we're joined now by a good friend of mine, Jake Brend from WOI in the Des Moines area. I almost said the Quad Cities. Jake, first and foremost, thank you for getting up early. I know what it's like to be a young guy like you in the business that you're at. So thanks for getting up early and joining me on a Thursday.
Oh, no problem. I love getting up early. It makes the day before the night shift feel a lot more worth it. You're
ready for kids then, because there is no sleep when you have kids or 4 like I do. So let's talk Iowa State, because it's as good as it gets in Ames right now. We talked last time you were on that it's almost a golden age of Cyclone sports right now. And we're going to start with the men. They got back on track the other night, put up 108 points at Hilton Coliseum. I guess we'll start with that game. The loss on the road against West Virginia, they bounced back the way you would want any upper echelon team to bounce back the other night, did they not?
Yeah, they nearly doubled the amount of points they scored in Morgantown, which if you would have put anything on a wish list, you probably would have said get to 80, and they eclipsed that by almost 30 points. So it was a near perfect offensive performance. They started out in a game. They had 8 turnovers at the under 12. They only finished with 10. So once they really cleaned up that end of the floor, then they started creating turnovers, and it looked like Cyclone basketball, which is what most fans wanted to see. And it was definitely refreshing after an off day in Morgantown over the weekend.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game in a second. But, man, Jake, last year you watched this team and you knew that they would defend you, and you wondered if they'd have enough offense. And how quickly they've improved so much that they're missing a piece, but they're putting up 108 points. It's amazing how they identified, I don't want to say it was a weakness last year, but they identified maybe the area that didn't make them elite, and they've become elite in that area.
Yeah, the guards no doubt have taken a step up. Kurt Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert, especially. Taman Lipsey, he's at the level he's kind of always been at. But as important as the guard play has been, it's what they've brought in the front court with Joshua Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson. The big men that Otts has had in the past, your Rob Jones, your Trey King, those guys played so hard, but they were just so limited on offense. Joshua Jefferson is initiating offense. He had 30 points the other night. He's had several games with 7+ assists. So what he brings to the front court is unlike anything that they've had in TJ's 4 years in Iowa State. And you're right, it's elevated them from 3 years ago. They were maybe the worst offense in Power 4 basketball to now they're a top 10 offense in the entire country.
You mentioned Morgantown. Boy, in the grand scheme of things, when you're picking up big victories at Texas Tech and then coming home and playing in an environment like the Hilton is and beating a Kansas team by 17, and then you got to go to Morgantown and you're coming back home. The grind of the Big 12, there's going to be bumps along the road. That's what West Virginia wasn't it? And give credit to a familiar face in that area as well, and Darren DeVries. He's done a fantastic job in his first year at Morgantown.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors at play. Of course, DeVries coached not against, but near Otzelberger, 30 minutes away. So familiarity with the program is one thing. West Virginia is a good team. You could argue they've got the 4 best wins of any team in college basketball between going to Fog Allen and beating KU, beating Gonzaga, beating Arizona, now Iowa State. Javon Small is probably the Big 12 Player of the Year. And then for Iowa State, you go 1 of 17 from 3. You turn the ball over almost 15 times. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. And for me, it takes adjustment to see Iowa State almost getting the Kansas treatment, to where when you've got the number 2 ranking next to your name, these arenas are on fire. They want to beat you. It would be a statement win for some teams. A win over Iowa State could be the difference between being out of the tournament and being in the tournament. So they're getting everybody's best shot. And for the most part, they've dealt with it well this year. I don't think they were ready for maybe how on fire Morgantown was going to be last week, and all of that kind of combined into the first Big 12 loss.
It's funny because they bounced back the way you knew they would. I partake in sports gambling, and I saw a line at -15 the other night, and I hit it before it got to, I think, 16 and a half, and they covered easily. What's it say about that team? And they don't care about those numbers, but just to respond, you knew that team with that guy on the sideline in that building was going to respond the way they did the other night, didn't you?
Yeah, I always feel good about a TJ Otzelberger team after a loss, because you know how tough practice probably was the next day. You know what went wrong was being pounded into their heads. What I wasn't sure about was, well, it's UCF. It's this team that has barely even been in the Big 12. Definitely not a name brand. You wondered, would Hilton be on fire for a UCF team? And you got to give Iowa State fans credit. It was. You got to give the players more credit, though, because once they went down 18-15, I believe, 10 minutes into the game, it was pure domination from that point on. And it was really good to see Keyshawn Gilbert get going. His stats looked fine in Big 12 play, but compared to what he was doing to start the season in Maui, against Marquette, against Iowa, he'd been in a relative slump, and it was the best that he's looked in over a month. So without Milan Momcilovic, getting Gilbert going is certainly the most important thing to keep the offense afloat without their best shooter.
And where is that injury? When do they expect him back? Will it be for postseason play? What's the timeline? Did they set a timeline on that?
So they said 4 to 6 weeks, which would have been a week ago. And he got surgery on Tuesday. And it did not, they said it didn't affect the timeline at all. So yeah, that timeline would get him back anytime from mid-February to early March, certainly in time for the tournament. It's a weird injury because it's an offhand. It's a non-shooting hand injury. So I don't know how much work back comes from that for a guy that is out there to shoot the ball. But if they could have him back before that date with Houston, I believe that's February 20th. That could be the difference between maybe winning a Big 12 championship and not.
You're watching Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. We're joined now by Jake Brend talking Cyclones, the sportscaster of the universe, just named recently in the state of Iowa. Also coming up in just a little bit, we'll be live with Owen Freeman, Iowa standout Moline State Championship winners. So a lot going on here in the Thursday. Hey, Iowa State now does one of those trips that college basketball teams, I guess, got to get used to now. Iowa went out to the West Coast and did the California swing. The Iowa women went to the Northwest and did the Northwest swing. Iowa State heads out to Arizona. They got a game against Arizona State and a game against Arizona. Not the toughest teams. I know Arizona's always Arizona, but not the Arizona that we're kind of used to. But still, 2 tough road games, a road trip. How does this team approach, being on the road for a little bit and playing in 2 places that, as you mentioned, they're going to be ready for Iowa State? You want to jumpstart your season, get a victory over the second-ranked team in the state or in the nation, and then you do just that.
Yeah, it's a tough road trip, no doubt. Arizona, they started the season 4-5 and flew under the radar, but the analytics still loved them, and they're off to a 5-1 start in Big 12 play. They blew out West Virginia on the road. That's a sneaky good team that come tournament time, they might have the metrics might say that they should be a 3 or a 4 seed, but their resume might say they're a 7 or 8. So that'll certainly be the toughest game. It'll be close to a pick 'em if I had to guess. Arizona State, they're not great, but again, it'll be a tough environment. It's a first West Coast road trip for this team. You wonder how much going to Maui helps. You go to a different location for a week, you're there, but again, it's foreign, and we just saw it with Iowa how different it can be. They were playing great ball at Carver, and 1 week later, it's a different team when they were out in California. So I'm really interested to see how they respond. That turnaround's quick, Saturday to Monday. It'll be a I believe 9:30 local tip or a 9:30 Central tip.
Yeah.
Out in Tucson. So a lot of different factors at play, and I'm interested to see how they respond.
Big picture real quick with the men, and then we'll talk about the Iowa State women. But when you look at this men's team, we just talked to Rob Brooks on the show a couple days ago, and he talked about kind of reliving the Caitlin Clark years and what it was like. I'm not saying it's the Caitlin Clark effect or, circus in a good way of what that was, but there's definitely a lot of hype, anticipation, excitement, must-see TV, all that kind of stuff. The expectations are as high can be in Ames, and rightfully so, right, Jake?
Oh, absolutely. The ceiling is the highest it's been since, I believe, the early 2000s teams with Marcus Fizer, Jamal Tinsley. Before that loss to West Virginia, Iowa State's only loss came to the number one team in the country on a last-second tip-in a game they had an 18-point lead and blew it. So you've seen Iowa State play basketball with the best in the country. And this team, if all goes right, they should be a 1 seed. If they do what they're supposed to do and don't lose a game at Hilton Coliseum and probably win a little over half your games on the road, they're certainly looking at a 1 or a 2 seed come March. And it's I think we're headed towards one of those marches with a lot of chalk. I don't know how into Ken Pom you are.
Oh, I am. I am.
The really nerdy side of college basketball. Yeah. So there's the rankings, but they're ranked by net. Mm-hmm. And this year there's 5 teams with a net of 30 plus. Usually there's 1, maybe 2. And I was kind of looking through past years. Usually when there's 4 or 5, those are years where we get a lot of 1 or 2 seeds in the Final Four. So if Iowa State takes care of business in the regular season and sets themselves up in a path, there's no reason they can't be in the Final Four playing for a national championship. And I don't know what else you need to hear to start getting on the wagon.
Hey, remember that, people out there that love that NCAA tournament and are going to be filling out their brackets here in a month and a half, 2 months. That's good knowledge right there. No, Tom Kakert, the nerd of all nerds, loves Ken Pom. So we reference Ken Pom probably way too much on this show. Let's switch to the ladies. They get a nice victory last night, and we kind of talked before we came on air that, Iowa State is Iowa State and what they're doing, but when it comes to your travel purposes, maybe in March and what you guys will go cover, you look at Iowa State women and the Iowa women and the Iowa men we'll talk about in a second that are all kind of, you don't know right now. There's been other years that we knew, and back into my WQAD days, that we'd have to cover this team. That's not the way it is right now, but a big victory for Bill Fenley last night. Where are these ladies in Ames at right now as they kind of hit that home stretch?
Yeah, they're just in a weird spot where they're pretty easily taking care of business against the teams they should. I wouldn't say they've lost a game yet outside of that UNI game early in the season that they shouldn't have lost. It's been punching up a weight class where they've really struggled. They had a blowout in Morgantown. But again, that's a tough spot to play. They're just in a weird spot where we all know the term sophomore slump, really in any sport. And Audie Crooks is not having a sophomore slump by any stretch of the means, but it's a sophomore heavy team. And I don't know if it's the defensive side of the ball. They've had some inconsistent 3-point shooting, which is different for an Iowa State team. I think there's just a lot of puzzle pieces that aren't fitting together because this is mostly the team we saw last year beat Maryland in that crazy comeback in the NCAA tournament. They were a couple buckets away from knocking off Cameron Brink and Stanford. The talent's there. It's just a matter of putting it all together, and hopefully in the coming weeks they can do it against one of those premier teams in the conference. I know K-State will be coming to Hilton Coliseum soon. Baylor's always a really good program, so they'll have their chances to get a marquee win, which I think they're going to need come tournament time on selection Monday for the
yes women. For the ladies. You mentioned it too, the pieces there, the talent there, the coaches there, and he usually gets these ladies playing their best basketball down the end of the stretch. Is it one of those things that you can kind of see them figuring it out, him figuring it out, although who am I to say he doesn't have it figured out? He's got way more victories than any of us. But that guy, you gotta have confidence that Bill Fenley will figure things out for these ladies, and they're going to be a dangerous team in the last month and a half of the season.
100%. No team in the Big 12 wants to come to Hilton Coliseum. That goes without saying. And you look back to last year, the team ended up being a 10 seed, and you think of them as, this unexpected underdog that lost almost the entire team in the transfer portal. They bring in all these freshmen. You just expect them to be fun. Well, they got in the top 25 at one point. And the conversation was, well, can Iowa State could they maybe host an NCAA tournament region? And they went on a really rough stretch around this time of the year in January and February. And they were at one point on the outside looking in and had to go on a hot streak at the end of the year to even get in the tournament. And like you said, they figured it out. They made the Big 12 championship, lost to Texas. So I do think we might see something similar to where you hit Valentine's Day and all of a sudden this team is playing basketball like a top 3 team in the Big 12 like we all expected. And who knows, maybe they sneak into the big dance and they're a 9 or 10 seed that nobody wants to see on the other side of the bracket.
He is Jake Brend. He is our Cyclone expert, but we're going to keep him here for a little Hawkeye talk as well. Let's start with the ladies because they had a 5-game losing streak. Snapped in an impressive performance late last night for us in Washington. Lucy Olson, as I was talking to Rob Brooks the other day, just needed to get going. Boy, she got going perfect from the field. A great game from her. That's a good sight, a good sign for this Iowa team that now has work to do if they want to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, a win over Washington isn't anything that you're going to have front center of your resume come tournament time. But with how they were playing, the 5-game losing streak, and the fashion they did it, shoot 71% from the floor. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It was really impressive. And Lucy Olson, when I watched her in person for the first time when Iowa played at Drake earlier this year, I swear I didn't see her miss a single mid-range shot. Her confidence was through the roof, and she looked like the 3rd leading scorer in the country from a year ago. And to me, I'm not inside her head. I'm not inside the locker room. It looked like a player that was going through the jump from the Big East, which is traditionally not a great women's basketball conference, to the Big Ten, which I think is the best women's college basketball conference. And you miss a few shots, it can be really hard to get that confidence back. So to see what she did last night against Washington, if she can get going and be the Lucy Olson that was expected to be brought in, that's what could propel Iowa to a good stretch down the rest of the season and maybe sneak into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and you look at this team, if you can get her going, obviously Hannah Stolke not playing right now, they'll eventually get her back, and these freshmen continue to grow up, and you think down the stretch they'll continue to get better and better. The Guyton freshman is fantastic, and I know coming off the ACL she'll get a lot better. I know Coach Jensen loves her, so some optimism after the sky was falling for the last 5 games after they won that losing streak. How do you and Raina decide who goes on February 2nd to the hottest ticket in the entire state when Caitlin Clark comes back and Juju Watkins comes to town and it's USC and Iowa at Carver Hawkeye?
Well, so last year every game at Carver was a spectacle, but there were 2 in specific that were bigger than the others, and it was against Michigan when Caitlin broke Kelsey Plum's record, and then it was senior day. And I went to both of those, and the coverage went so well that we're just not going to screw anything up. We're not going to change anything up. Yep, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm superstitious, so I'm going to head to Carver on February 2nd against USC and Juju Watkins, and Raina will be back in the studio, and we're going to treat it like we treat some of the biggest games that we cover. Yeah. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a throwback to what it was like covering Caitlin. I don't even want to imagine all the media that's going to be there and the headache that comes with that. Mm-hmm. Thanks to the Iowa athletic department, especially the communications staff, for how they handle it, because I don't think any of those people that signed up for those jobs 4 years ago could have ever known what they were getting themselves into. And it's quite the spectacle. I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, Bailey Turner does a fantastic job. And, we talk about Iowa needing to get that signature victory or Washington's not that one. But, boy, I don't know if they can beat a very, very good USC team. But if somebody's going to do it right now, it's going to be in that environment in front of those people that are going to be there. And that could be that one that propels them down the way. Jake Brend joining us now. Owen Freeman coming up in just a little bit. So I wanted to talk a little Iowa basketball with you. And yesterday I had people call me after the show because I'm an Iowa fan. I grew up an Iowa fan, especially with the two Moline boys there. I have some biases that I'll talk about, and they're out in the open. But I was frustrated, and I think a few people were like, "Man, you were kind of hard on that team and the coach and all that kind of stuff." There's a frustration with Iowa basketball right now that I know you see in the Des Moines area and the Hawkeye fans in that market as well.
It's hard when it's year 15 and really all the complaints or frustrations that the fan base has had for those 15 years hasn't gotten better and in some ways has maybe gotten worse. And I've seen too many people, I think, question effort. I think that's a really slippery slope to question effort of college athletes. These guys care. There's no doubt. It's just a matter of it. I don't know if the message maybe isn't getting through in the right way. At one point I thought maybe it's just the difference between home and away. It's a lot harder to get in that mindset. So I didn't really have an explanation for that Minnesota loss. But right now I think it's just a combination of the apathy from a large part of the fan base can be really hard on a coaching staff. It can be hard on the team. And then a team like Iowa, if you're not hitting 9 or 10 threes, it's just going to be hard to win a lot of games. And that's the spot that this program is in right now. I don't know what the immediate fix is, but it's got to come soon, I would think, or else the apathy might get even lower.
It is crazy because we were 9-10 days ago talking about a blowout victory against Indiana. These guys are getting back on track. They had the comeback win against Nebraska. And while things can start going, you knew California would be difficult. I always thought splitting there would be outstanding. That didn't happen. And then to come home but you're right. If you can't shoot 3 of 21 from the field or from 3-point range and win too many basketball games. The funny thing is, though, you get the people that are like, Fran doesn't care anymore. He doesn't have that fire anymore. That's the furthest thing from the truth. He doesn't have to be red-faced Fran every single game to know that guy's not locked in. And Tom Caker and I talked last night. He's been, and you've been in press conferences with Fran after losses, and sometimes it's probably a 2-minute press conference. He's been, even in losses, he's been more expansive in his answers. Wasn't happy with the officiating the other night, but has been more expansive in his answers. So I think people who think that guy doesn't care anymore, that's just so far from the truth. And as we mentioned, Jake, in college basketball, you're a good week away from this being a completely different narrative. They got to go out and do it. They got to obviously take care of business against Penn State, but they have opportunities, Jake, next week, 2 home team games against ranked opponents. They win those games, they're back into that conversation. If they lose those games and the energy's not in the arena, then the conversation goes another way. These next 4 games for the University of Iowa, I think basketball program in general as a whole are really, really important.
This team reminds me a lot of the early Hoiberg days at Iowa State, where, that there's going to be some games where you hit 13 threes and you can beat anybody in the country. And that is certainly at play when Purdue comes to town. That's certainly at play when Wisconsin comes to town. Who knows if Peyton Sanford and Josh Dix can both go for 30 again in one of those games. That's the difference between a win like that, and that's the optimism for the Iowa fans is you can hope you get the defensive output that you got against Indiana, with the track record, you certainly can't count on it. What you can count on is once or twice a season, there's going to be a game against a ranked team that you don't expect to win, but you go out and win because Sanford or Dix or Owen Freeman goes for 28 down low. Something like that is always going to happen in Iowa City 2 or 3 times a year, and all it takes is one of those games to start snowballing, because that's kind of how we've seen Iowa do it in the past. They might go on a slide in February and then go on the road and win a game that you're not supposed to win, and then all of a sudden it's 6 wins in a row, and you're looking at an NCAA tournament team. So, like you said, huge opportunities with Purdue and Wisconsin coming to Carver the next couple weeks.
And I think people look at some of the track record late and remember like some fades. They used to call it the Fran fade in February, and there were years like that. But recently, Jake, that's not been the case. I was talking to an Iowa fan the other day, a frustrated one, and he's like, and you know they're not going to do anything in the Big Ten tournament because they've never ever done anything in the Big Ten tournament. And I said, you know, they won the Big Ten tournament 2 years ago. Like, I get there's a narrative, but of late in recent years, Fran's teams have played better down the stretch. Now, of course, anybody listening to this is going to say, well, then the Big Ten or the NCAA tournament, what happens? Yes, and anything can happen in the NCAA tournament. I'll go this far and say that, like, if Fran in those 14, 15 years has made a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8, the narrative and the apathy and the maybe attitude of the fan base isn't exactly what it is. And I know it's ifs and buts and those kind of things, and it's not easy to do, but I think fans still hold that. Like, we have not. Cooper Koch, his dad was on the team the last time they played in this Sweet 16. Jess Settles, who you and I both know, has been on the show, he was still playing one of his 59 years that he played at Iowa. I love Jess. He was still playing when that happened. So I think that narrative and that fact in itself, it sticks in Iowa fans, doesn't it? Well, especially when Iowa State's going to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four all the time.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help when Iowa State is doing well, and you that happens on both sides. Mm-hmm. When Iowa State football was horrible in 2015 and Iowa was going to the Rose Bowl, a bunch of anger comes from Ames. So that is completely normal. I think fans just want hope. That's the biggest thing. And when you haven't made a Sweet 16 and you haven't been extremely close, I know there was the one year they almost beat Tennessee when they were a 7 or a 10 seed. But when you're in the Sweet 16 and you lose a game, then you can convince yourself, well, if this play went that way, we're in the Elite 8, and then, oh my gosh, there was a 5 seed waiting for us in the Elite 8. Who knows what could have been possible? And I think that's the difference between the round of 32 and the Sweet 16, is if you lose in the round of 32, there's not much what ifs about what could have been. And another problem is, that the Oregon year, it wasn't close. And I think all of that has compounded to where we are now and where the apathy has reached.
Yeah, and I keep telling fans, and I believe this, and we're going to talk to one here in just a few minutes, it's a likable group of guys. Program-wise, whatever you want to think, this team and these guys, and you know some of them from your area, and the Stanfords are great kids, and Owen and Brock I can't say enough about, and I've really gotten to like the interactions I've had with Josh Dix, and Drew Thelwell's a bit of a relation. So they're a likable group of guys that I'm still intrigued to see where this thing goes, because I guarantee you they haven't given up hope. They haven't folded up shop, and we'll find out that in just a little bit because we're set to be joined by Owen Freeman in just a few minutes. But he is Jake Brend. I appreciate you doing this, especially because I text you like 12 hours in advance. But it's important in our area as well. We talk a ton of Hawkeyes, a ton of Illini. There's a lot of great Cyclone fans in our area and people that listen to this around the state, and nobody knows more about him than Jake Brend, who has surpassed Keith Murphy as the greatest sportscaster in the history of Des Moines. Am I right?
No, I think he's got 6 of these awards. So
Yeah,
I've got some
rename
work
it.
to do.
They're going to rename it after him eventually. You'll be getting the Keith Murphy Award one of these days. Hey, tell all those people up there I said hi. Tell Raina, give Raina my best, and we'll talk to you again here real soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Daz.
All right, he is Jake Brend. Appreciate you. We got a lot more to get to on the show, as we mentioned, coming up in just a little bit. Owen Freeman from the Iowa basketball team will be joining us live to chat about the Hawkeyes, and we'll be chatting a lot more than just Hawkeyes with Owen Freeman, get his thoughts on the Moline Maroons, and also it's wrestling season. Royal Rumble's coming up. Owen is my tribal chief, so we'll talk a little wrestling as well with Owen. And then also in the second hour of the show, super excited to be joined by Alex Johnson, the head coach of Sherrard, playing fantastic basketball, 18-2 on the season. We'll talk to him about the Tigers and preview a big game on Friday between Sherrard and Rock Ridge. And then also a new thing on Thursdays, we'll be having our Flashback Thursday. I like to go through some of the old stories that I did back in the day and kind of bring you guys a Flashback Thursday. So we'll have that for you and much, much more. You're watching OTA on a Thursday. We will be right back. Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Everybody who's doing that live right now. Also up on all your podcast platforms as well. It's January, but January is running out quickly. February right around the corner. And then, of course, comes March, basketball season in full swing. And we're joined now by one of my favorite people when it comes to not just basketball, Owen, but wrestling and life. Owen Freeman joins me now. Good to see you, my man. I appreciate you taking time to do this.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for having me on, Dazo.
So we'll talk basketball first, and the sky is falling right now in Iowa City, if you didn't know that. But I know a disappointing 3-game losing streak. Talk about where this team is, not on the basketball court, but mentally and confidence-wise. I know it's a tight-knit group that's a resilient group as well.
Definitely. Obviously, these 3 games haven't gone the way we wanted to. We feel like we had the opportunity to win all of them. Obviously, the UCLA game, we got down pretty big at first. But just the team that we have, we're all coming together. We knew we weren't gonna separate and go apart. Coach kind of emphasized being like a fist. Don't let anything happen. Just stay tight. So that's what we've done, and we had a great day of practice yesterday, and we're just excited to have another opportunity to go out there and play with our brothers out on Friday. I
think that's the cool thing about basketball. Football wise, you got to wait a week. And exactly. You got to think about that loss, and as a Bears fan, you think about a lot of losses. I got to throw that in there as well. But we got our guy though. We'll talk about your Bears in a second. How excited are you for that next opportunity? And there is some really big opportunities starting Friday night against Penn State.
Yeah. We take every game as one of those opportunities. So the team's really locked in, and I'm personally really excited. Obviously, Penn State's a really good basketball team, and the opportunity we get to play them at home. I mean, it's just another opportunity to get one in the win column, and another opportunity towards March.
when you flip the page and you look at Penn State, I mean, every team in this conference is talented. When you see Penn State and you start preparing for them, what do you expect and what do you guys got to do Friday night to be successful?
Yeah, I think we really got to take care of the ball. They're a high-tempo team. They press, they trap. They really rely on turnovers, and obviously having Ace Baldwin Jr. He's a great point guard, but I know we also have a great point guard, so we're going to be right there, and we're just got to take care of the ball, and we'll be good.
A Friday night of college basketball. I know there's a couple parents of yours that don't appreciate that because they got to maybe divide and conquer. Your thoughts on a Friday night game, because that used to be high school night. And I know any opportunity you get to get on the hardwood, you're going to do that. But Friday night games just feel different on the college level.
Of course. There's a little bit more electricity there. Obviously, in high school, those were the big games. You had Tuesday night games, but everyone was kind of looking forward to the big Friday night matchup. I mean, it's kind of that amplified at this level. So especially knowing that we kind of need one right now, and just that the mindset that we have. So it's going to be a fun matchup for sure.
Is there a thing as backs against the wall? I know it's so early, it's in January, or a must-win game, all those cliches that idiots like me like to use. Is there such a thing right now, or is it just simply eager to get back on track and start stacking things in the right direction?
Yeah, I think we're just eager to get back on track. I mean, we kind of take every game as an opportunity to kind of throw that first punch as if our back was against the wall. So just kind of playing with that same fight and that same desire. So that's definitely the kind of mindset that we have. And we're just looking forward to it and pretty eager to get out there.
When you look at this schedule, I know you don't get too far ahead, but we talked about opportunities. Next week, there's 2 big opportunities against ranked teams, and not to put cart ahead of horse, but that's the beauty part about college basketball and this conference is if you need victories and impressive victories, just take a look at the schedule, man. It's never easy, but it's opportunities.
Exactly. We have some big games. We feel like we have a chance in every game that we play. We felt that way since the beginning of the season, and obviously some games, they don't go the way you want to, but like you said, that's the beauty of college basketball. We get a new opportunity within the next couple of days.
Owen Freeman as a sophomore, and there's that thing called a sophomore slump. I don't know if anybody expected it from you. I didn't expect it from you, and it hasn't happened. You've been fantastic. What have you seen from yourself in your sophomore season? And from the outside looking in, not that you weren't confident last year, but you look so comfortable on the court right now. Where are you at in your game when it comes to your sophomore season?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just a lot more confident in my like making moves off the dribble and shooting the ball. Obviously last year I attempted maybe 4 threes, and I've hit a couple. I think I've hit like 4 or 5 now this season. So just being more confident in the work that I've put in and the work and the talents God's blessed me with. So I'm just enjoying it, having fun out there. I know the Lord has a plan. That's all I'm trusting in.
I talked to your former head coach, Sean Taylor, the other day. We're going to talk about him in a second, but he mentioned the strength that you've put on. And I remember being in, and my ribs are still broken, I think, from down in the game at the iWireless Center, or Tax Slayer, whatever it's called nowadays. I'm messing it up. But in Moline, and you chucked me over your shoulder. Talk about putting the size on, because it hasn't affected, your agility, athleticism, but it's needed in the Big Ten, night in and night out.
100%. Yeah, that was something that the coaches really emphasized, that they kind of wanted to see a change in my body, and I kind of wanted the same thing. So obviously night in, night out, it's like a different beast every night. Each team has their own big guy I'm still, I think, the lightest center in the Big Ten. So I'm just kind of looking at that. I had to bulk up a little bit. Just being like, I was like 225 last year, and that kind of allowed me to get into some foul trouble, because obviously I'm in positions to where, okay, like now I'm under the rim, I got to do something. But now I can kind of hold my own, and I haven't been in foul trouble as much. So it was just something that was needed for sure.
After the Indiana game, I loved it. You were leaving the podium, and you reminded the Big Ten and everybody that you were there. And I was there, like, maybe hours after you found out about Big Ten Player of the Year. I won't even say it anymore. That's the last time I'll say it. And I've never seen you, not upset, but cranky about anything. You're a nice, easygoing dude, and I could tell it bugged you. Making that statement, not just against Indiana, but afterwards in general, that's something that you have that chip still on your shoulder, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I had my own belief about which way it should have went. It was nothing against any player. Obviously, I think McKenzie's a great player, and I have nothing but respect for him. I was able to talk to him a little bit. But, yeah, I just felt like that. I mean, I kind of won it 9 times, so I just felt like it wasn't really a question. So, and I know that the media gave it to me outright, so I guess it was just towards the people who didn't vote for me.
We got it right, Owen. The media finally got something right. I expect like a statement like that at a press conference from Brock, but that's not usually your demeanor. What brought it out in you that day?
I think that's just the confidence that I've had in myself and the talents God's blessed me with. I mean, just kind of realizing that and realizing that, hey, like I belong here. That's kind of allowed me to kind of step into who I am and allowed me to really be showcase my abilities and be confident in myself.
You guys, and I'm very biased, but that sophomore point guard of yours is a dude. And I think anybody from the outside looking in looks at a guy who's third in the Big Ten in assists or something like that and shooting almost 40% from three and playing well. But he is a bit of a lightning rod when it comes to critics and people not thinking certain things. I can't get enough of watching him play, and I can't get enough watching you two play together. How fun is it playing more together this year? Because you did for so long your whole life. Last year, not as much, and you seem comfortable with him on the floor with you once again. I
mean, yeah, that's just what it is. I've played with him for so long that like we know where each other's going to be at. We know the ins and outs of each other's game, and I know he was on the podcast. He called me the little brother, but he's definitely the little brother. Just having like my little brother out there, and we hold each other accountable. We know the level that we both want to play at, it's just it makes things 10 times easier just knowing you have that guy out there.
I have to go back to that interview with Brock because he said that you guys fight. And I said, you don't physically fight because, Owen, you're what, 6'10", 6'11", 245?
He knows better than to do that.
But yeah. he makes it sound like he puts you in your place. Like, come on. Like, would you like to respond? Or would you like a rebuttal? A rebuttal?
No, there's no way. He might mouth off, but he knows better than to put the pause on me.
Where would you assess or how would you assess his sophomore season? Because like I just said, and I'm biased, I think he's made great strides. Where do you see it as a guy who's there, not just in the game, but in the locker room and practice, that side of Brock Hardy that I don't think everybody else sees?
I mean, he's just stepped into his role as a leader. I mean, he's a vocal leader. Obviously, his work shows. And he's just taking his game to a whole nother level. Obviously, he's shooting the ball really well and making plays, but we need him out there when crunch time happens. So he's just a guy that you can rely on to make plays and go out there and win you games, and that's something that he's been doing it ever since high school, and I've been an eyewitness to that. So he's just taking his game to a whole nother level.
Will you please beat him in some type of video game sometime soon so I don't have to listen to him?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I want to talk to you about Sean Taylor, and we're joined now by Owen Freeman, reigning Big Ten Freshman of the Year and Iowa sophomore center. Sean Taylor, you only had him as a coach for 1 year, but it was a special year, man. You win a state championship in the state of Illinois. He won 700 games. I had him on Monday, and I said, Coach, I think just means you're old. And he said 100%. But when you hear that number with that guy, with what he's done for you, what comes to mind to you?
I mean, there's only one word that comes to mind, and that's the GOAT. There's obviously not a whole lot of coaches that can say that they've won 700 games, won 2 state titles in 2 different classes. And just the track record he has, and the way that he's able to shape not just basketball players, but men, you can't credit Coach Taylor enough. I was blessed to play with him or play for him for a year, and I just learned so much stuff that I probably should know. And I was like, Coach, like, I don't know what this applies to basketball, but like, cool. So he's got a lot of information, but I mean, he's just a fun guy, and you can do nothing but laugh when he's around.
He's literally one of the funniest guys I know. I think were you in the house for number 700 watching little brother play?
I was in the house.
Thoughts of that team? Like, where do you see those Maroons? It's getting to be that home stretch for the high school basketball season. Where do you see this team, and where maybe can it go?
I mean, I think this team is a dark horse to make a run. I mean, they have all the right pieces. They play together. They just need to stick together. Obviously, you have some great players and some guys that are glue guys coming off the bench. I'm really excited. Obviously, I get a firsthand look. I think Braden's been having a great season. I think Trey's been playing really well. Brady and Arthur, Zach. When I was there, I had a great game. They have a great team.
You mentioned Braden. I want to talk to you about him for a second because little brother, and I'm sure there's brotherly rivalries and you guys fight. You have to. And if you don't, I need the secret from your parents because I got 4 boys that fight nonstop. So I'm sure there's that side, but I've never seen a pair of brothers that have so much respect and love for each other. And I know you're super proud of everything he's done. He's going to Cal Poly next year. Just talk about your relationship with your real little brother. Forget about Brock, your real little brother and Braden.
Yeah. Braden's my best friend. That's kind of just the relationship that we've been able to have. And I know, so we kind of got really close when we moved here to Moline because I knew some of the stuff that he was going through at Bradley and some of the way that the coaches and the people there were treating him. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I've kind of like had that little like protection thing over him. And ever since then, like we've kind of grown closer and just seeing the hard work and everything that he's gone through, injuries, stuff like that, kind of come to fruition. I mean, I'm just nothing but proud of him. And I can't say enough words about the way he's been playing this season and the confidence that he's been able to show.
All right. I got to talk to you about a few other things and we are joined right now by Owen Freeman. Appreciate your time, my friend. I think I'm going to start with the Bears because I want to have a lot of fun with wrestling, but I know you're a Bears guy and you're a Caleb Williams guy, and then you just took my offensive coordinator. So smile all you want. Talk to me about how excited you are as a Bears fan to raid the Detroit Lions. That's where you're at now. You're raiding the Detroit Lions. Never would have thought that would be the case.
We're not just raiding the Detroit Lions. We're raiding the whole NFC. We're coming for the whole thing. No, like I was a lot of excitement as a Bears fan coming into this season, and I ordered my jersey. I have the T-shirts. I mean, I was ready every game, and obviously there were some heartbreakers in there. Like when the Hail Mary, man, I went to bed so sad that night. But yeah, no. Obviously, we're putting a lot of trust in Ben Johnson. I think he's going to do a great job in Chicago.
I know you're a Caleb guy. The Bears winning the offseason. Y'all always win the offseason. You just don't win when it matters. You win the offseason always. Yeah. When you were out in California, a little birdie told me you had a run-in with another Quad City celebrity. Is this true? Tell us about it.
I was at the Lakers game, and it's the end of the game. Josh Dix's dad had close tickets, and like we kind of like went down there to talk to me, Brock and Josh, and like into the game. Then I see like this big shiny jacket walk by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Seth Rollins. And then Becky Lynch walks by, and I'm like screaming at Seth. I'm like, dude, Quad Cities. He's like, who is that weirdo?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I love you.
That's awesome. And he is a good Quad Cities dude. So if anybody doesn't know, Owen is a wrestling fan. I am a huge wrestling fan. Our good friend Tom Kakert, also a wrestling fan. Tommy's going to the Royal Rumble. So and there's nothing to be ashamed about being a wrestling fan. It's fantastic. So Royal Rumble coming up soon. I wanted you to do your homework, so we'll start with the men's Royal Rumble. Who wins it? I love it. Who wins it and why?
Oh, I have more than just that.
Oh, I love it.
I have my final four.
Okay.
My final four.
Give it to me.
Roman Reigns.
All right.
CM Punk, John Cena, and my special entrant, The Rock.
Okay. All right.
And
so who wins?
John Cena.
Because
he needs to break the record.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think our guy Seth Rollins screws over CM Punk to continue that rivalry, and then obviously you don't need a championship on the line for Rock and Roman and all those guys.
No.
Who's your guy? If you had one guy, are you a Roman still? Or are you Cena?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay.
It's always Roman.
All right, of course.
I got the action figure over here. I mean, it's always yeah.
I love it. Ladies' side of things. Who wins the ladies' Royal Rumble?
All right. My final four: Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Nia Jax, and in the special entrant Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
And Charlotte Flair wins.
All right. I do see Charlotte coming back. I don't know if she wins it, but I'll roll with that.
Yeah.
When did you talk to me about your love for professional wrestling? Was it when you were little? I know your brother's into it. Kind of give me the lowdown on them. And I love it. You're so calm and chill when we do the interview. And then when we start talking about wrestling, you kind of perk up a little bit. I love it.
I'm excited. Yeah. So we started watching it. I was probably like third grade. And then just watched it. We had to take a break because Braden 619, my dad, and he was like really little. And then he started doing front flips off the dresser onto the bed. And my parents were like, okay, we need to chill. You can't do that. But then we got back into it. I got back into it probably like through middle school, and then I just always watched it through high school. And we had a huge tub of just like all the action figures. We had like the rings, the steel cages, we had the championships, the Money in the Bank briefcases. So we had a lot of fun. That was a huge part of my childhood.
I love because Pat McAfee was in Iowa City last year, Caitlin Clark Mania, all that kind of stuff. And so he was doing the show, and he had Roman Reigns on in Iowa City.
Was there.
Oh no, it's
row.
the best because you can, if you slow down the tape when Roman comes in, there's big old Owen, 7 feet tall, acknowledging his tribal chief. I absolutely loved it. Are you the only guy on the team that's a wrestling fan?
I am.
Really?
I get crap for it, but like, I mean, I love it. It's my thing.
No, I can understand you get crap for it. I get crap for it. I'm 45 years old. Tommy and Don Umlin and a couple buddies are going to the Royal Rumble. I had to stay home and be a dad, Owen, and coach basketball.
I know. I want to go so bad.
It's no fun. Before I let you go, just big picture this season for me. And obviously, if you're listening or Iowa fans are listening and they're frustrated, kind of what would you say to Iowa fans that might be a little frustrated right now to hang with you guys and get this thing rolling in the right direction?
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of look back at the year they won the Big Ten championship. They were 3-5 in the conference. So it's not the end of the world. We have a lot of more basketball to be played, and don't worry. We got some guys in the locker room that are bringing everything together, and nothing to freak out about. Obviously, teams lose some games, but relax. It's a long season. That's what I got. Yeah,
I like
there's
it.
nothing.
I like the
you ain't gotta
relax
freak
thing.
out.
That's a little Aaron Rodgers relax thing. Boy, Tommy told me to ask you this: who's your GOAT for basketball?
For basketball,
Yeah.
LeBron James.
Who's second?
Mike's second.
Okay.
But there's a
Kobe
big
third?
gap. Kobe's 3.
There's a big gap. Has your dad educated you in like MJ?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
There's a rumor, like Tom told me that Brock has LeBron, Kobe.
Mike.
He has Mike third.
Yeah.
I'm going to call his dad after the show and yell at his dad for not educating his boys well enough. So, Owen, I appreciate you doing this. I know you're super busy, got classes going. Get out and watch these guys. The fans that come to Carver are doing a great job, but there's room to be had. Come join them. 100%. They got a game Friday night against Penn State, on the road against Ohio State, and then I think back at home for 2 against Purdue and Wisconsin, both ranked. So he is Owen Freeman. I appreciate you doing this. Be well, and we'll talk wrestling real soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, Dazzo.
All right. Owen Freeman joining us here on Off the Air. We got a lot more to get to. Coming up in hour number 2, we will chat with Sherrard head coach Alex Johnson about a big matchup coming up between Rock Ridge and Sherrard, and a lot more high school basketball to get to. That, a little throwback Thursday, and a lot more. You're watching Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. We will be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. It is a Thursday here in the Quad Cities. Of course, that's just one day away from a big night of high school basketball on Friday. Several great teams in the Quad City area on both sides of the river, and we're joined now by the head coach of Sherrard, Alex Johnson, and you are one of those teams, my friend, that are off to a great start. 18-2, I believe, overall. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't do research anymore. I just hang out up here in the loft. And ranked 8th in the state. First and foremost, congrats. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, I really appreciate having me on today. 18-2 is right. The kids are off to a great start, have a lot of buy-in with the group, a fun group to coach, and obviously, we have a big game on Friday that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, we'll talk about those Rockets in a second. But when you look at this team and this program, it's always been a good program, and it's a program that you came from. And then, obviously, you were at other places and make the move back to your alma mater. What's it been like to get back to your alma mater and to maybe, restore the roar? Very cheesy, very cliche. But to get Sherrard basketball back on track as you have the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, kind of in the midst of COVID, my wife and I, we were just discussing, what do we want our futures to look like? And I never really pictured coming back to Sherrard. I've been doing this for quite a while. I've been coaching for 13, 14 years, but then it kind of started to feel like, where can I make the biggest difference? And we live in the community of Matherville, which is part of Sherrard. And, it kind of led us to, it is time to go back home. And, fortunately enough that, Michael Applegate, our former athletic director, and our principal, Tim Worthington, believed in me enough to come back and lead this program. And it's been fulfilling. It's been rewarding. But to be honest with you, it's been just a lot of it because we have great kids. Parents have bought in. The community has bought in. And it just doesn't happen overnight. And so all those little details of allowing us to develop young men, to be able to coach them hard, to teach them life lessons, all that kind of adds up. And after a couple of years, we get the program where we want. We get a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz to it. But, really credit to the community and the players for that.
You mentioned that community, and sometimes in today's day and age, everybody wants instant satisfaction and instant, things happening overnight. And it takes takes a minute sometimes. Talk about that community, the patience with the community to know that you don't go 18-2 overnight. You have to start building. And I think you did a great job building from those lower levels into what maybe you have today.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they were kind of like Bears fans. They wanted a winner, but they just hadn't had it for a while. And so now that we have had kind of continued success the last couple of years, that the community sees that all the efforts that we're putting into, that it's starting to pay off. And a lot of it goes to our players that, the unseen hours, right? The time that they're putting into the gym, the time that they're interacting with our youth. We do a lot with our youth program, third grade through all the way through ninth grade, to get them involved, because the idea is great to have a season where you're 18-2 to start off with, but we want continued success. And so the last 3 years we've started building that, and we want our younger generations to understand that when you're going to be a Sherard Tiger, there's going to be an expectation that you're going to compete, you're going to represent, and then hopefully that's also going to lead to wins.
Yeah, you have some really good kids in the program. Alex, I always joke that I feel old because I'm starting to cover people's kids, and it's the same case with your group. Kent Brown's a great dude. You got Carter there. I know the Cartons. I went to school with Seth Taranis, and his son's playing with you right now. Talk about not just the kids, but the parents and the families out there, because, it is a family effort in a community and in a program, and that support from home and all the way through these kids are important.
Yeah, and you're right. So we have Jansen Bender. He was a Sherard Tiger back.
I forgot about him.
Jansen Bender, right? He has 2 kids in the program, and then we have Mike Jones, who was a good player in the program. He has 2 kids in the program, and then just the other names: Kent Brown, Seth Taranas, all that kind of adds up. And they have this culture, because they have been through it. They played when they were younger. They had great experiences, and they want their kids to have that. Where I give a lot of credit to our parents is just, the trust that they have in our coaching staff, which I have a tremendous coaching staff as it is, that they allow us to coach them the way that they need to be coached. And in today's society, what happens sometimes that can be kind of a hindrance to programs is that parents maybe get a little bit too involved. They look at the superficial gains. They don't see that the big picture of having a great team and being a team player and having success, what that's going to lead to, because they want that kind of instant gratification with their child. So that has not been an issue at all since I've been at Sherard. I mean, they've just been a tremendous support there. And the fact that I get to coach these kids and they're so high quality has just been, I've been really fortunate to be able to do that.
Hey, let's not get that carried away. They're all not that great of guys. No, I'm kidding. Let's talk about these boys, because a talented group, and I know last year's group was special, and you lost some talent, some good kids from that one. What makes this team click, and what is it about this year's version of the Tigers that have you guys 18-2?
They're selfless. That's kind of one of our key mottos is that, Ryland Carton gets a lot of the attention, right? He puts up 20 points a game. But if you came to one of our practices, if you saw our team hang out, that Ryland's just one of the dudes. He's not the guy that has the ego when he comes in there. He's willing to put the balls away, to sweep the floor, to put down the hoops, whatever it may be. And so, those little things in the program that we're all in this together, and it's kind of the servant leadership type idea, I think lends itself to building a strong program, strong community. And so, I mean, that is something, and we had that last year as well, but it takes time to get really successful. And I mean, we had 8 great seniors last year, and they kind of set the bar for what we wanted to do this year. And it's just you're kind of building off of it. And so, the Holland Andersons and Jack Haddlestats, they set kind of what the standard is, how to act in our program for the Ryland Cartons and James Blackwells, and then it trickles down. So, you really kind of need that. And my assistant coaches, they represent well. They come every day ready to go. So it's that kind of community feel that you really need to be able to build that success in a program.
When did this group start believing? Did they believe from the start? Was there a victory or two along the way? And how is the confidence now? Because you're 18-2, you're ranked in the state. It should be pretty good.
It's up and down. Once they start believing, once they start believing too much,
believing the hype,
believing the hype. And we had a game a few weeks ago against West Hancock. 2 really good teams, and West Hancock came out and they just took it to us. And I think that was a wake-up call for us that, yes, we have success, but it has to be 32 minutes. It has to be all the time. And so that is something that we're continuing to kind of, work through. I mean, our first win at home against Rockridge, I think that was a big stepping stone for them just because, we haven't been very successful against that program. But then, we win our own tournament. So we beat a good East Dubuque team at our own tournament. That helps. Even going into last year, some of our wins, you're just kind of stockpiling, you're just kind of building that up. And whether you win or lose, you just need to get in so many of those games. You're not going to necessarily win every time, but you want to get into those battles where your kids get a little bit more comfortable, get a little bit more confidence in those situations. And I think on Saturday, just last Saturday at Wharton Fieldhouse, we played Chicago Diet, solid team. I think that's when you really kind of saw it click for the team a little bit. That, wow, if we actually do what the coaches say, if we can play more consistent, then, what is the ceiling for this team, which I think can be incredibly high.
I'm out here in Milan. I grew up in Southwest Rock Island. I know all about Sherrard Rockridge. I'm an Alleman guy, but I worked at Milan High-VB way back in the day, so I know about this rivalry. We'll talk about the game itself and players and all that kind of stuff, but just talk about the rivalry. You grew up as a Sherrard guy. You're trying not to smile, but I know there's no love loss between the good old Rockets. I think it was Glenn Cook at one time that says he didn't like Sherrard. There's no love lost between the two, and I'm kidding with Glenn because he's apologized since.
Yeah, no, it's true. So, fun trivia fact, when I was in high school, my junior and senior year, we played in the regional championship both years against Rockridge, and we split, lost my junior year, won my senior year. The coach of that team was Jeff Henry, who's the assistant coach right now for Rockridge. So the bloodline goes deep, into this rivalry. And, the thing of it is, it hasn't been much of a rivalry for a while. So I think that's why some people are highly anticipating Friday, is because it's been, dominated by Rockridge with all their great players. And, give Rockridge a lot of credit. You have to have a team like that as kind of the standard, and something that we have to continue to chase. And with Rockridge, that is the standard that we had to get to. If we want to win championships, if we want to win a conference, if we want to do well in the postseason, we have to get to that level. So they are the ones that kind of motivate our kids as well. And there's a lot of great people over there in Rockridge. But I don't really care. The objective is to win, and we want to beat them. They want to beat us. I understand it. That's great. If we lose, the sun will come up. But the objective is to go in there and win, not just be nice, play, shake hands, stuff like that. Actually, the first time we played Rockridge last year, it was an anticipated game. People were, because early in the season, I think we were both maybe undefeated. In Rockridge, they played a really good game. We did not play well, didn't come out and do the things that we needed to. And, the post-game talk was a little rough to the team because after the game, and obviously I'm a little bit old school, after the game, after they pounded us, we're just all giving bro hugs to Rockridge and everything else. And, I was like, that's not what it's about. This is about competition. And, you guys did not compete. And the reason they're giving you hugs is because they don't think that you're on that level. So then we play them at Sherrard. We lose a really close game. We lose by 1 point. And as we're going through the handshake lines, I can see the kids are kind of having words with each other. And, the competition was still going on. And that's what you want to see. Now, at the end of the day, yeah, they're probably going to go to college, be friends. They're probably friends on Snapchat, Twitter, whatever. But, on Friday night, when we play basketball, that 32 minutes, it is, let's go. We want to beat them. They want to beat us. And that's what high school basketball is about.
The first game, you guys win a close game at home. Take me through this next game and what you guys have to do on Friday night to be successful at a tough place to play. And I'm sure the environment, I got a freshman that dresses sophomore at Alleman, and I got to go to that game, and I'm cranky. Our good friend Todd Anderson reached out and said, hey, are you going to the Rockridge Sherrard game? I'm like, I might have to figure out a way to get there. It's going to be a great environment. What do you have to do X's and O's wise, to be successful at a tough place to play?
Well, I give Coach Harris and that squad a lot of credit because, there's the traditional Rockridge, which they still have a lot of characteristics of, but they have kind of changed their identity a little bit here as the season has went on, and playing with a lot more pace. And, now the ball is in Landon Ball's hands even more, kind of playing this point forward role, which is going to be tremendously difficult to stop. And so we're going to have to be great in transition defense because, when Ball gets the ball off a rebound, he's going to push, he's going to attack. And then you got Wheatley as well. So you got this dual threat that can play high tempo. And now they've spaced them around with shooters. And obviously Caleb Kuniko, if you lose him in transition, that's what he just loves. And he can put 9 points on the board in a hurry. But then you have, the Layman's kid and the Reichart kid that can shoot it as well. So they can space you out and they can play, and they're playing with a lot more tempo than maybe they have in the past. So, I mean, that's one key to the game. And then they're big across the board. And so we have to make sure that we're rebounding at an elite level, because they do have that advantage. And then it comes down to Bull. How can we slow him down? I mean, the kid, the joke is, it feels like he's been there like 25 years, because he's been, 4 years and played in a ton of games. And now he's grown like his playoff hockey beard as well. And so now it's just like, what's going on here? But he's just having a terrific season, and you're not going to probably stop him, but we got to try to slow him down. And I know he's great at getting to spots and drawing fouls and things like that. So we just got to be solid. And, there's not a silver bullet how to beat them. Some of it might come down to who makes the shots, but, how we play, we got to make sure we do our job. It's cliche. We got to make sure we do our job, and we have to do it well for 32 minutes.
Coach, I've known you for a while. We gotta brag a little bit, because I got 3, and people know this. There's actually banners down at Todd's gym. As East Moline Glass, I got 3 C League Bettendorf championships, and you were part of those. Will there be a 30 for 30 about that team? And then you look at it, I know it's not this way anymore because Coach Harris is there and Coach Say's at United Township, but there used to be a Friday night in the same gym where it was yourself and Coach Say, both champions. Pete would be in the stands, Clemmy would be in the stands, Pat Flynn would be in the stands. That's a pretty special group. Forget about all this high school talk. Talk about those great C League teams.
Yeah, I mean, and Cottrell has a kid in our program, so he was there. Yeah, I mean, when you first texted me about this, I thought this was going to be our reunion show, that we were all going to get together to reminisce about that. But you kind of start to see maybe the future, 2040 men's C League champs with, Cottrell and Kuniko and Veranda and all those guys that have connections to that team. So, I mean, those C League teams, it was like the Chicago Bulls, how dominant we were, the second run, 70 wins and all that type of thing. And, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't think I could do it anymore. I think my time has passed.
I couldn't do it then, Alex. I couldn't do it then. I rode you guys' coattails. But think about that for us and for me. I had you and Say coaching nonstop. You guys didn't shut up. I had 2 head coaches yelling at me the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, basketball don't sleep. We're on all the time, and we got to win those championships. And obviously the GM Todd Anderson just orchestrating that team, just like a Jerry Krause, really putting together, finding the bigs, finding the shooters, finding everything. Just a remarkable run. So we'll have to have that reunion show here.
It was a lot of fun, and all I was there to do was to bullshit the referees, because I knew every referee from being on the baseline all the time. So, hey, before I let you go, look at big picture wise high school basketball, because I think nowadays, some kids' youth get bad raps, and it's not the same environments maybe tonight or Friday night will be for you guys, and there's good environments, but high school basketball is still special, especially in this area. I don't know if you get too far out of this area where it goes, but in this area, in your conference, the Big Six, the MAC, Friday nights and even Tuesday nights are pretty special, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm so fortunate that I get to be a part of this with these guys that, basketball is a big part of my life. Not just that I got to play the games on Friday, but the lessons I learned, the relationships I was able to develop is one of the main reasons I want to be a coach and be a head coach, to be able to pass some of that along. And when you can still get that high quality basketball, and I know that everything's pulling us away. We have so many distractions and kids are doing so much, but the communal feel of high school basketball still resonates. And when you walk into that gym on Friday night, or if it's a Sherrard Orion game or even a Rockridge Monmouth game or whatever it may be, and then you go to Western Big Six with all their tradition, that you can just feel the community there, that these people have went through there. They played in the band, they were cheerleaders, that they played in the games, whatever it may be, and you just feel that support. And with how we live our lives a little bit more isolated now, and that we might not get out. We don't have as much clubs and interactions with people that are necessarily around us. I think this is one of those things that still stick around that is special, and it is a big deal. And so I'm just really fortunate that I still get to be a part of it.
Do you remind your boys this week what they get to do? I mean, they're living the dream. And as you know, as somebody, we've just relived our stupid C-League years. The high school years, for some of these guys, they're living the best years of their life. And in 36 hours, they get to play their rival in front of a packed gym. Do you make sure you remind these guys that they're living the good life right now?
Yeah, they're tremendously lucky. And, I mean, this is a big game on Friday, so we try to keep it in perspective that this isn't the finale of our season. I mean, we still have a lot of season left. It's kind of neat that we're playing such a big game in January that everyone wants to be at. But they are so lucky. And what they'll tell you about, and you can probably relate to this, is that when this all ends, they're going to talk about the bus ride. They're going to talk about the hotel trips. They're going to talk about the team dinners. They're going to talk about the things that I said that I don't even remember that I said, and the things that they did in the locker room and all that. And so, yeah, they'll remember that Rockridge game. But what you really hope to as a coach is that you can build that bond within that team where, they're together, they appreciate each other. And then when this all moves on, just like it is with me now, I mean, I don't get to see the guys I used to much anymore. But, man, if I'm at a Target or if I run into them somewhere, it is instant. You come, you start talking. You'll probably even start talking about a little bit of basketball, but you see what their families are. That is so important. And I know that this group, and that's some of why we're having some success, they have that. Not every team has that, but they do definitely have that where they do appreciate each other all the time.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. We'll get on Todd and see if we can get like a fancy Johnny's reunion dinner or something like that. See if we can relive the good days. But best of luck on Friday night. Appreciate it. I might sneak out to it, and we'll talk to you real soon. Appreciate you.
Hey, Matt. Yep, absolutely. Anytime, buddy. Thank you.
All right. It is Rockridge and Sherrard, a big game coming up on Friday right here in the Quad Cities. We are just getting warmed up. A lot more to get to on a Thursday right here on OTA.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Thursday. Thank you guys so much for watching on YouTube. If you're watching live, thank you for doing so. Make sure you subscribe, like it, rate it, do all the things you need to do on YouTube to help make this little thing successful. Also, we are up on all the podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcast, which is a big one. So if you didn't check out today's show, you want to watch it later, make sure you do that. Spread the word. Tell a friend or two to watch it. Of course, if you are late in joining us, we are joined by Iowa center, Iowa sophomore standout, Owen Freeman. Of course, won a state championship back here in Moline. Owen was nice enough to give us about a half hour of his time, so we talked everything about Iowa's struggles, their slump, the way the locker room is right now. He talked about his relationship with Brock Harding. We even talked Bears and WWE wrestling, and he came with knowledge and picks for sure. So if you missed that, go back and check that out. Also, to start the show, we talked a little Iowa State athletics. Jake Brend from WOI in the Des Moines and Ames area kind of joined us to talk about one of the best basketball teams in the entire country. Iowa State ranked second in the country. We talked Iowa State women with him as well. So check that out if you missed that. And of course, we just wrapped things up with Alex Johnson from Sherrard. The Tigers ranked 8th in the state right now, 18-2, and they make the trip just that way of me, just down the road from me to Rock Ridge High School on Friday night, a big battle between Rock Ridge and Sherard. Love doing that. Want to do more of that, is kind of incorporate a high school interview or two throughout the week here in on Off the Air. So been blessed and lucky enough to have Sean Taylor and Ron O'Brien and Mark Polite and now Alex Johnson on this week. If you missed any of those interviews, go check them out. They're on the YouTube channel and on all the podcast platforms as well. Working on things for tomorrow. We will be chatting with, it's a big weekend of NFL football coming up. We're going to talk with a guy that's played in some big games of late. Jake Gervais won a Super Bowl championship with the Los Angeles Rams a few years ago. We're going to chat with him tomorrow on the show. Also, we'll get you set gambling-wise when it comes to this weekend. We will have Dan Tomlin on to get you your picks. Also, look back at his picks from last week. Hold him accountable. I think we won a little bit of money, which isn't a bad thing. So anytime you're winning money instead of losing money, it's a good thing. So Dan Tomlin on tomorrow, and much, much more to get to as well. Some news that happened just a short time ago this morning, of course, the Australian Open going on down under, and it's Madison Keys pulling an upset in a fantastic match. She did that about 3-4 hours ago. So she is in a Grand Slam final for the first time in 7.5 years. Quad City native Madison Keys moved to Florida young in her life, but was born and raised her early years here in the Quad Cities. Still has a lot of family here in the Quad Cities as well. So Madison Keys heading to the Australian Open finals. We'll talk a little more about that tomorrow on the show as well. And one thing I want to do on Thursdays here, kind of starting something new, is a throwback Thursday. I'll look back at some of my favorite stories that I got to do over almost 25 years at WQAD. So coming up after another quick break, we'll do that as well. Actually, we're going to skip that break and we're going to get to that right away. So one person back in the Quad Cities, back in our area right now, is Logan Lee, finishing up his rookie season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Logan, one of the nicest people you ever meet. And when he was a senior, I believe, at Orion High School, they made a burger for him out in Orion, and so we went out, checked out the burger, and really great job by Jenny Hipskin, my photographer, doing this story as well. So without further ado, we're going to take you back. I'm trying to do the math in my head. He was at Iowa for like 100 years, but 5 years there, probably 6-7 years ago. So I'm looking at like 2019, probably just before the pandemic. The Logan Lee burger, one of my favorite stories that I got to do at the University of, at WQAD. So without further ado, here's a look back at the Logan Lee burger. At the Maple Street Grill,
looks good.
Local is better.
A lot of people take for granted the small town feel and the community. It's alive and well out in Orion.
For years, owner J.R. Greenwood watched Charger standout Logan Lee thrive in 3 different sports. A second state wrestling title in February gave Greenwood an idea.
The reach that he has in the community, it went hand in hand. Great burgers with a great athlete.
They asked me to make a burger, and I'm like, absolutely, I guess. I mean,
we tracked him down through Facebook, and him and I talked.
It was kind of out of the ordinary, so I wasn't really prepared for it, I guess.
So what exactly is a Logan Lee burger?
He came up with the name, and it's absolutely fitting. It's the Champ. It is a super beast of a burger. It starts with our half-pound Black Angus. That gets topped with 2 slices of American. Then we have our signature candy bacon, which we make here in-house. Then it gets more hickory smoked bacon on top of that. Then we pile it with a huli inspired pulled pork, which is a Hawaiian dish. Got about a half a pound of that. Then finally we top it off with some melted provolone cheese. Nice and melted, all sandwiched between a sesame seed bun. It's outrageous.
A burger not just named after Lee, but created by him as well.
He asked, what are your favorite toppings? I obviously said bacon because everybody likes bacon.
Yeah, he likes bacon. He likes this and that, but we wanted to find out more. And culinary speaking, what he really enjoyed from his trip at the Polynesian Bowl.
Completion for Logan Lee.
He asked about if there's any special burgers or anything over there that you could like design your burger after. And huli huli chicken and huli huli pork was my favorite thing that I had over there.
And it quickly received Logan's seal of approval.
Him and his dad came down one night, before it actually went live. Gave it a try. Once we got their thumbs up, then it was tail lights after that.
It was pretty close to what I was thinking. The huli huli was right on.
Here's the champ burger for you guys.
Thank you very much. It really met what I was hoping for.
When you're licking the plate clean, that's when you know you've got a winner.
So that story a lot of fun to do, and reason I kind of bring it up is hoping and efforting to get Logan Lee on the show sometime, probably next week. So we're working on that as well. A lot of other things we're working for next week as well. A lot of things to get to tomorrow. Jake Gervais, Dan Tomlin, to name a few. So we're going to take one last time out. We'll wrap up in a Thursday edition of Off the Air right after this.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Always helps to turn on your microphone. Welcome back to Off the Air. It's a Thursday edition of the show. Going to wrap things up a tiny bit early today. I have a few things I need to get to for tomorrow's show, but I want to thank everyone for watching. First and foremost, I want to thank Owen Freeman for taking the time to join us on the show. If you missed that interview, go back and check it out. He talks about the state of Iowa basketball when it comes to the confidence of the team riding a 3-game losing streak, and of course talked a lot about his relationship with Brock Hurting, his relationship with Sean Taylor. A lot of things we got to with Owen Freeman. Taking the time to visit with me when you are on a 3-game losing streak, and not a lot of student athletes want to do that, and Owen was nice enough to do that, so we appreciate his time And we will get back with Owen sometime in the near future as well. I also want to thank Jake Brend, today's show. Cyclone Talk, the Iowa State Cyclones, one of the best teams in the entire country on the men's side of things. And, of course, Alex Johnson from Sherrard. If you missed any of those interviews, go and check them out. On yesterday's show, we had Dan Burrich. If you missed that, go check out what Dan had to say as well. Great to catch up with him. Throughout the week, we've had Mark Polite and Sean Taylor as well, and many, many others. Working on Jake Gervais for tomorrow, former Super Bowl champion and Assumption standout, will be with us tomorrow, and Dan Tomlin with a lot of gambling to get to tomorrow as well. So a lot to get to. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please tell a friend or two as well. Getting real close to 600. If you don't believe me, I track it all the time. I'm really obsessed with getting to 600. Then I will be obsessed to getting to 700 and 800 and 900 and so on and so forth. So just a few ways. So tell a friend about OTA Off the Air, what we're doing here in the Quad Cities each and every day from 10 until noon. Thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We will be back here for one more episode coming up tomorrow. Have a great Thursday, Quad Cities.